Good evening, everyone. My name is Ebun Joseph. You're welcome to the second edition of the DEeP table. Say hoo hoo. So today we're having a conversation about something that is really happening in Ireland that is shaping our world today. You know, we're asking the question, who belongs here? You know, and we've had things, you know, with shouts of get them out, you know, with the burning of international protection applicant centers. We have the Irish travelers who are native Irish citizens, you know, being marginalized in different forms, or even the report that came out that shows that black and Brazilian children, young people are marginalized or over-policed in Ireland. The question we're asking is, who really belongs here? So that's a massive question we're looking at. With me today, I have four wonderful people who are going to be helping us look at the topic of who belongs in Ireland. We have with me Lucky Kambule, we have John Bissett, we have Obere, and we have Shashank. Please, who again? Who? So they're going to be joining us for that conversation tonight. Okay, so I have these amazing people. So when we go online, when you start, just introduce yourself a little bit. But you know, the profiles are all online. But I want to begin with a simple question. You know, when we talk about, today we're looking at this issue of belonging. You know, we hear that a lot. There's a lot of debate going on, you know. And the question we're asking really is, who belongs here? Who has the right? Who decides? You know, so when you hear this issue of belonging, what does it mean to you? Can start, okay, or anyone can start.
Well, belonging to me, it's about where you feel comfortable at, where you feel at home, and anyone that is in Ireland must feel that they belong in Ireland, regardless of what status that they came to Ireland as, and it's something that I feel we need to. That's how you need to belong.
Okay, John, belonging.
Yeah, I'm from Dublin. I live in Dublin, and I've lived in Australia and in Canada in the past. I suppose they're both white societies predominantly, even though they belong to other ethnicities or ethnic groups. So I think it's really important especially how we as Irish people, when people come here, how we treat them. I work as a community worker, and we have kind of strong connections with people coming here for a long time. So in the 90s, people started coming in significant numbers. Like just before we started today, we were talking about Ireland wasn't really a destination for people because there wasn't much here to come for. And then people started to come, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, we had a lot of people come to places like Rialto. So going back as far as then, and the state then made it very difficult for people to come. Legislatively, and it did the referendum in 2004, 2002, another really strong attempt to stop people. So the Irish state does talk out of both sides of its mouth. It says it really wants people to come here, and then it produces legislation to stop them. And it's done that in significant ways. But if we take it at a grassroots level, I don't know what, so there's really, there's a lot going on at the moment. But there's also, in terms of the right and the use of the tricolour, City West, what happened to Drogheda. But there's also a lot of grassroots work going on to welcome people and to make them feel welcome. And the problem is that at some level, it's not getting a lot of airtime. It's not being heard, whereas hate gets a lot of airtime. Setting a building on fire is getting a lot of airtime, and it's a problem, right? So, but the work of the kind of, I often think of it as mundane, everyday, profane work where people come, they get education, they get training, Like there's lots of, like we're in Tala this evening, we were just talking about the migrant work going on here and all over the country, massive. This massive kind of grassroots base that we do have, and how we continue to build on that as we go forward.
Yeah, already we can already see that, belonging is not even just something as, a simple thing. It's about power, really,
Yeah.
isn't it? But who gets to decide, and how that impacts on people, But is it something, Obele, if I maybe come to you with a different aspect of that, is it something that people earn, or is it something that the society extends, or how does, where is Ireland falling down, or are we doing well in belonging?
Belonging is something that I think in Ireland, belonging ordinarily should be that you're present, you're there without conditions. So you come, if they set criteria, you meet those criteria, and then you're accepted without conditions. In Ireland, there are clearly several criteria have been set for you to belong. So there's the criteria, the legal criteria where you have to, for instance, when you come in, get your legal paperwork, either by birth, naturalization. Those are all criteria for you to belong. You also have social belonging. You have different types of experiential that you've lived in the country, you've done stuff in the country. So all of those are grounds on which you would typically be able to ascribe some kind of belonging. But the issue is, even when you get all those, meet all those criteria, can you actually say you belong? Is it without conditions? Or do they, is there a situation where when you actually reach those criteria, they shift the goalpost? So in Ireland, I think that's what happens most times. You get to those, you meet those conditions and the goalpost is shifted, or it's changed slightly, or then someone says, why are they here? Because if you listen to what he spoke about, like Vogeda, the people that were there legally. They had gone through the legal framework that Ireland has put for you to belong. So why then are you going, and you went to them, you went there to burn whatever, put the place on fire. So if you look at it from that point of view, belonging, who determines it? Who changes the goalpost? Should they be able to do that? Is it fair for them to be able to do that? So those are the questions, and until we're able to get some kind of acceptance without conditions, then that's where we'll be able to say we belong.
It's so interesting, because when you're talking, hey, go girl, go girl, go girl, because why I was saying that is because, my doctorate, the finding of my doctorate is that what society needs is actually acceptance. But I couldn't find any material, so I actually had to come up with a definition of acceptance, what it is. And the first thing you said when you started talking was that, around belonging is that, are they really accepted? So really, what we're looking for is about acceptance. But what we talk about the most is about belonging. And I keep saying, actually, one of the reasons why this one is not working is because we're pursuing the wrong thing. But that's another day's conversation. Shashank, I might come to you now, We look at, the Indian community. I mean, we've had, and we've had our ministers who are speaking from both sides of their mouth. On one side, they say, that immigration is the problem. On the other side, they say, immigrants are, if our hospitals we close down, if, we don't have. And we had a lot of, protests, with the silent protests, with the attacks on the Indian community. But for you, what does belonging mean? I mean, if you're working and you're paying bills, and I hate that argument because I think that even people who, for whatever reason, can't work physically have a right to belong in a place. So when we always tie belonging to, they're working, then we reduce human beings to commodities, to workers, to labor. But what does belonging mean for you?
So for me, belonging means feeling safe to express who you are, your culture, your identity, and your values without the fear of exclusion. It is not about ticking boxes or fitting in perfectly, but about being accepted as a part of the whole. I know you mentioned Minister Harris, Taoiseach Harris. He did say earlier that the migration numbers have significantly gone up, yet it was his cabinet ministers, Heather Humphreys and Ellen McEntee, at the Dublin airport hugging all Ukraine refugees when they come into Dublin airport, giving them RP cards and a PPS card right there and then. And now, a couple of years later, he's going back to the exact same thing, But again, politics, we're not discussing politics because that's bad. And when we ask who decides who belongs, I'd say it's not the state or any one group. It's something we create collectively through inclusion, empathy, and action. Belonging is validated through respect, not permission. And it is also something that transcends nationality, religion, and borders. It's grounded in our shared humanity and contribution, not the birthplace or status. So that's my understanding of belonging.
Okay, again, you can hear my word acceptance. If you've not read, just put in a plug in. If you've not read my book, you need to go and read it, where I talk about acceptance and what it is. If we don't start teaching about acceptance, it's about accepting of difference. That's where our problem is. That we see difference, we don't accept it, we judge it, We decide that some groups are more accepted than others. But Lucky, I might come to you, just looking at, like you work closely with people seeking international protection in Ireland. How do the chance of get them out? How do you think that how does it shape, the belonging of people seeking international protection? I know, like, I don't know, like, the young people who were in the home when it was being born, because young people don't understand.
Yeah.
How does that shape identity? Because I know you're always on a Zoom call trying, when all of this happened, you are always trying to talk to, the group to calm down people's nerves.
Yeah, this is really, really serious from our community's point of view. And I remember maybe 3 years ago when this chant started, this protest started coming to the people in the centers. And there was one place in Ballymun where they really, really started. They went to that hotel, the travel lodge, and they were rattling the door, and the children there were crying inside. Are they going to kill us? Are they going to kill us, mommy? So they go to the streets, and this is the message that they're hearing. They get attacked physically, and it makes people scared, really, really scared in the true sense of the word. And the events that happen, like what happened in City West, for instance, one gentleman there, when that happened on that particular day, he could not access his place. His family was inside. He was hiding in his van up to 1 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Kept on phoning the wife and the children how they were. That's how scared people were. I went to see the people that were attacked last week in Drogheda, and spoke with the parents there and the children, and they were scared, they were terrified, and the question that they are asking themselves, what is it that we have done to deserve this? One lady was saying that the thought that came into her mind was, what would they have done if this happened in the middle of the night when everybody was just asleep at that time, and they would be woken up by this smoke, because that smoke was huge for them, and they had to use the back windows to take the kids out of there because they could not go to the stairs. So they are permanently traumatized by that experience, permanently. So the effects of these actions is huge to human beings. If you look at it from the point of view of a human being that is already traumatized by the system, traumatized by the history by the fact of whatever happened to them from their home, when they think that they can relax now here, boom,
Something.
send them home, send them home, send them home. Lastly, then you get these ministers speaking out of 10. It brings that fear. Remember that what happened in Drogheda. Days after that, then deportations.
That's right.
All those fears are on top of the people. And then you hear the minister saying, now that you are if you are working, it doesn't matter what your living conditions are in that direct provision, you will pay. How do you pay 238 per week sleeping in a bunk with 10 other people? Does that make sense?
I'm wondering, like, who is advising the government? Do you know what I mean? Like, who is advising? But look, just looking at, like what is that then saying, that what is Ireland then saying that, about who is welcome, who is top? Because, Ireland is a land of many welcomes, So the question I'm wondering is, like, what is that saying, whether intentionally or intentionally, about who is welcome and who is merely tolerated?
John mentioned about the legislations that are created to make access to Ireland hard. And what I can tell you is that hard as it is now, come June next year, it's going to be harder because of the EU pact that is being implemented. It's an environment that is created, I don't know. They are right in terms of who is advising the government. When we are just happy about an election of a people's president, and they like showing who the bosses are.
Exactly.
So I don't know what is
Yeah.
the solution to this.
Maybe
issues.
John might have have something for us. John, I have a question for you. Like, you've got decades of work in community, and you've written about, class and place and who belongs. So I'm like, how does racism and inequality, how do they intersect? To define who counts as from here. Because when we're talking about who counts, we're not just saying counting, but we're saying from here. It's about being, it's about place.
Yeah, two things, just maybe to finish on Lucky's point. So one of the questions we have to ask is the current government administration shifting to the right, okay? And is the far right shifting the government more to the right? They're more than autonomous individuals and people themselves. So Minister Harris a couple of days ago said migration was too high, right? And there was another piece in the Irish Times by Micheál McDowell, former Minister for Justice, also arguing about the problems with the migration system and how we should lock it down, right? And I think McDowell was around when the referendum happened in 2002, 2004.
He was more than the minister. He was the brain behind it.
Okay, so, and here he is writing again. And then Harris says migration is too high. And in the Irish Times yesterday or today, Fintan O'Toole took the numbers apart. So if on a calendar year, the number of asylum applications are around 18,000, but the number of people coming into the country was about 125,000. So the rest of the people are here, let's say, legitimately. So if we take, and then the number of refused applications is about 1,500. So minuscule in many ways, and most of the people that we would know in communities who are being refused their applications are working, they're paying tax, they've had work permits, and like I know personally, so many people that you're going, why can we not? Okay, so we know our channel system of the asylum process is over here, the economic application process is over here, but there's no reason why we can't work to facilitate people who are absolutely are committed, are paying tax, in some cases are employing other people. So if we think about that, what does it say? That there's a whole stream of far-right rhetoric, ideology, which has material effects when it reaches the ground, that has fed from across the Atlantic, and is also feeding through from Europe, is changing politics of Britain with reform, and is it going to change politics here? So, like O'Toole's argument in the Irish Times was that we haven't really bought in to the shift to the right yet, right? Now, I think that's a moot point at the moment. I think actually we did many things which were very right-wing, actually, right? So, so I think in the coming months and years, that's going to be really important for us about how we treat people, what we want to do, and like the larger political blocs in the European Union have moved to the right, and they're dictating the whatever the new migration pact policy is called that Lucky is referring to. But we have significant autonomy. Like I think it's also very significant that Catherine Connolly's been elected. It's not, as everybody keeps saying, a position with official powers, but it is certainly significant, as Michael D has proved, in terms of the emphasis, the way, the kind of moral compass, if you like, of Ireland. What should it look like and how should it feel? And I think Catherine Connolly is definitely somebody who's pro-migrant, pro-Palestine, pro-equality. So there's all of that going on, and we need to shift the dial back to a place which provides care for people, which says we actually need you.
Yeah.
Right? We're so lucky to have you come and be here. Like maybe I've spoken for them, but the kind of link I think with class inequality for me is, so not only do we have the big politic of the thing, we've also got the daily grind for people who are here, and that's the work that you've written about in your stuff around. So, like for me, what's really crucial is what happens to people when they get here.
Yeah.
Like what? So, if we take somebody arriving into a direct provision centre, let's say they get a work permit, let's say they go to some of the ETBs, they get some training, and then where do they end up? The chances are they'll end up in poorly paid work. They become what's generally known as proletarianised. They'll become part of the working class, right? And they'll be the lower echelons of the working class. They'll have problems getting accommodation because of how expensive it is to live in Dublin or other cities. And they will end up doing very difficult work for very low wages. And a lot of them are walking around the city, going from house to house, with older Irish people lifting them in and out of bed, feeding them, helping them to stay alive, and sometimes getting abused in the process because a lot of people don't have private transport, a car. But I think it's like, so for me personally, I think we need to really tell that story. Like there was a woman called Buchi Emachella who wrote about, she's a Nigerian woman who went to London in the 70s, lived in a public housing estate in South London, and wrote that life story, right? And I think as much as possible, like the work that Massey has done in terms of writing the migrant stories, we need that work to be produced, right? So we need to document. We need
All
to tell
of the
that
things that
story.
are happening.
We need to use those stories.
Yeah, absolutely. And and you hit on a really important point there, because on one hand we're saying migration numbers are too high, but every day we're trying to import people from outside of Ireland to come and work here. Yeah. I'm like, guys, make up your mind. Like these people have hands and legs, they can work, they want to work. And some people are actually deported from work.
Just one quick point.
Yes.
The point was, if all of the visas are revoked for the students who are paying the foreign fees, right, which are astronomical, the Irish university system will collapse, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And unfortunately, we don't talk about that enough. The ministers come out and give, I'm like, people, guys, use FOI to look, freedom of information, look for that information and let's put it out there. That's what we need to begin to do. We need to fact check our government. We need to fact check some of the things that are happening there. And that's why a lot of government is getting away with so many things, because nobody is fact checking that. But Shishan, can I come to you just around the attacks on the Indian community? It has shaken so many. So how has it changed the question on, belonging, visibility, and safety? How has it changed that conversation amongst people?
As John said, that there's a mass, the student community is massive, and educational institutions won't survive. The largest cohort of international students are actually made up of Indians, right? And these attacks that happen are very real. They're a real turning point because they expose a level of vulnerability that many people hadn't fully really understood. And the assaults create a deep fear and anxiety within the Indians and the South Asian community, because that attack wasn't just on an Indian, it was a brown man, Okay, it was a person of color. That could have been anyone, you know, and the kind of fear that spread within the community was like wildfire because they were like, hey, that could be anyone, right? They highlighted how public safety and belonging are directly linked. People can't feel they belong if they don't feel safe. That is one of the most important things. And for many of us, these attacks were shocking, but also clarifying. They revealed how fragile a sense of safety can be for minorities in Ireland. But they also led to greater visibility. We have seen communities come together, demanding proper protection and recognition, as you mentioned earlier about the silent assemblies. It is painful, but it also sparked important conversations about who is seen, who feels safe, and how we build a society where belonging isn't conditional on silence or invisibility. You know, so that is something that I'm quite proud of, that people came together and shared their personal experiences, which they were actually quite afraid to share in the past.
Yeah.
And when they saw that people are talking about it, they did share there, and that actually helped elevate the matter to levels that we saw in the summer months.
Yeah, it was really great to see that,
Yeah.
you know, the departments, you know, the ambassador, you know,
Yes.
came out as
So
well.
I think we organized the very first silence assembly outside the Department of Justice, and I swear to God, we had no idea what would have transpired
I was
after
there.
it. Okay,
I came out for that
It
one.
was just a bunch of random guys coming together, creating a WhatsApp group, and within a matter of 3 days, 72 hours, we had 1,000 people in that WhatsApp group. Okay, and we were like, okay, the location is the Department of Justice. Okay, and we were actually very scared. So we're like, okay, now what do we do? So we stood at the opposite side of the
I was because I
department.
came, I was wondering, why are we on this side? That's where
Because
the action.
I had
Why are
folks
we
telling
there?
me
So,
that,
okay.
you know what, people got arrested for standing there. I was like, oh, well, you know what, let's do it on this side then, right? So, and the numbers were massive. I think around over 120, 150 people showed up, and we did absolutely nothing. We simply stood with posters in our hand that stated justice for victims of underage crime and justice for teenage violence, and simply stood there like this for 40 minutes. A member of the Department of Justice actually came out, spoke to us, took the petition off us, right? And then they also allowed us to stand at the steps of the department, take a few pictures, and that went well. It was actually featured in the RTE. We didn't even know RTE be present. News Talk was there. We didn't even know News Talk be present.
Yeah, it
We
was
did not
good.
invite any media person over there. And then on that very evening, all of us went down to Tala. And Tala was massive, so there I had the opportunity to give a speech, so that was very good, right? And that went viral, okay? So it actually inspired more people to come out and speak. And that's what we want, to be honest. We want people to share the stories so that people feel confident and comfortable in sharing their stories, and it helps, you know, it's like a domino effect of empowering others.
And you know, I know that a lot of people, you know, the government, you know, there's been an anti-critical race theory. But one of the tenets of critical race theory is what is called counter storytelling.
Mhm.
So it actually, so you tell a story, and what that story does is that it permits others to tell their stories. So that, you know, when they hear their story, they realize, okay, I'm not mad, it's not just me. And because you hear your story told in a way that you understand, it actually encourages others. So it's called counter storytelling,
Yeah.
you know, and it's really, really powerful. Opele, maybe just, you know, looking at, you know, just around the, you know, what kind of barriers, you know, show people who are, you know, racialized backgrounds, you know, that they are not welcome here.
And lots of barriers. If I look at it even from the point of view of, I'm a lawyer, 23 years of practice in Nigeria, and I come here and all of a sudden I'm not able to practice. There's already barriers in the system, which is systemic ordinarily, but those barriers are there. And you're not able to practice, but someone that comes either from Canada or the US, a qualified lawyer, will be able to pay a fee, take an exam, and they can practice. But you're coming from Nigeria, you cannot do that, despite the fact that you are all qualified barristers and solicitors. So you find that these are systemic things that has been done, and it's to specific migrants. So there's some kind of selection, even with the migrants, because there's someone from the US is also a migrant, but there's some selection. So
Some are more migrant than others.
Yeah, more qualified than others. So you have those systemic barriers. There are lots of other systemic things that would ordinarily make it difficult for you to be able to access, even in academia, which I'm sure you know very well, that you're qualified, you have all the skills, but you cannot get the jobs. And when it's time to get the real proper jobs, well, if it's to do short fixed-term contracts, you get those things, but the permanent ones, you don't. It's like, it's not for you. So there are lots of barriers. Those barriers, it's how do we break them? Yes, there's some kind of acceptance, but is the acceptance unconditional? How can we get to a place where we can actually have full acceptance, where when you come in, those barriers are actually either lowered so you can get in there? I really don't know what the answers to it, but it's some kind of acceptance.
Yeah, and we actually wrote, I actually edited a book this year, with about 12 different authors, and we're looking at, inequality in academia, so for Black Irish women. And, everybody, who was writing there either had a PhD for many years or was a teacher or a qualified teacher, and everybody was talking about the difficulty of assessing, teaching jobs. Yet, particularly like in teaching, we don't have enough teachers, and we still have all of those. But why do you guys think Ireland is having so much struggle with accepting difference? Even as we're becoming more diverse. I keep saying we're never going back to the place where, you say, I've never seen a Black person. It's not going to happen again. I say in the next few years, every one of you will be related to a Black person or an Indian or a Chinese, your in-law, your outlaw, your uncle, your dalu, whatever name we call them. You will be related, to a person of ethnic minority background. Just 10 years, I think, is even pushing it too much. So why are we as a nation still struggling with accepting difference?
I think with differences, so I went to school in the UK. One of the things that I think you would typically have would be that lots of Black or foreign people come, they get an education, and they go back. So that's how it's been traditionally. You come in, you get an education. So everyone believes, okay, they are going to come, they'll get the education. And like you said with the universities, that's the system that they have with the universities. They do not think that as you come in as a student, you're coming in here to maybe get a job or remain as a lecturer. The intention is you come, you get a degree, you go back to where you're coming from. But Ireland is changing, the world is changing. There are lots of us that are here, and we're here with the intention to be here permanently. And where that is a clear-cut objective, it is a good idea for there to be some kind of acceptance. It's where you understand. And it's not that you're forced to accept, but I'm bringing value on the table.
That's right.
Accept who I am. Accept my culture, whilst I accept being Irish. I go out sometimes and I go and I have an Irish dance. I would assume that if I play my Nigerian music, you would also come and you would dance with me. So it's basically bringing down the cultural worlds and just trying to accept and trying to integrate, have some kind of connection. Like you said, we're going to, our children, most likely.
That's right.
My daughter is dating a white
about
guy.
it.
So the likelihood is she might marry an Irish guy, and I might be related to you. So we need to
Somebody's
actually,
going to be saying, no.
we need to actually get ourselves to that stage where we actually are taking steps to make sure that we connect, we accept ourselves. We accept our cultures, because the cultures are different, but the world is becoming a small place.
Yeah.
It's becoming a small place. So if we're not ready to accept ourselves as one small globe, an island is just one.
I think I love the way, little kids look at it. It's like pencils, know. Inside it is a real pen, is a lead,
Yeah.
But there's, it can have a blue coloring, a green, casing, but at the end of the day, it's still a pencil.
It's
You're
pencil,
still writing with it. It's just the outer shell, But I think some people think that, that skin color is more than skin. Lucky, why do you think we're struggling in Ireland to accept, accept difference?
Traveling is the best teacher of any human being. If you are stuck in your old ways of doing things and you are afraid to change. People come and you think that you have this fear that they come, they're going to take things from you. And that is what people are suffering from. They think that, oh, you're here taking our houses. You are here, you're taking our jobs. You are here, you are a middle-aged man, you are a threat to our women, to our children. You know, then you don't accept, and the media, of course, is playing a huge role in perpetrating that propaganda.
Yeah.
And it's easy for people to just accept it. And that is where also the damage is it gets escalated so very fast. And the work that we do as people that work with communities is what needs to happen. I remember when these centers were being banned as early as in 2018. We had to go to those affected areas, speak with the locals there, to let the people know that we are not a threat. Just welcome people. We went to Moville in Donegal. We went to Ruski in Roscommon and everywhere else, and in Leitrim as well, to just say to people, accept us the way that we are. Take your time to learn.
To know us,
about-
get to know the
Yeah.
people. That's right.
Get to know about us. Get to know. And invite in whatever community gatherings that are there. Tidy towns is another way of people working together in that town to make it clean. The simple things that needs to be done to make sure that people don't fear
Yeah.
why I'm here.
But we don't even need to go so far. John, maybe I might ask you, because the Irish travelers are native. They were born here. They did not, so you cannot let them get them out to where?
Yeah.
You know, so what do you think, is why, how belonging is racialized and cultural in Ireland?
Okay, part of the problem for me is, I think, understanding the history of racism. Right? And I've been reading Francisco Betancourt's book, Racisms. And so when you read that, you start to begin to go, okay, this is an old problem. It didn't, and when you say that, you go, I'm not trivializing the present, right? But so you see what happened in Spain during the Inquisition. You see what happened between the kind of North African European frontier border over 1,000 years ago. What happened in South America when the Spanish arrived. And like the kind of history of anti-Semitism is staggering, right? And so you come up to the 20th century, and so you begin to get this historical perspective, and you wonder sometimes whether humans are doomed, right? And you go, okay, no, let's say we're not, but there's a lot of history, right, and in the past that we should have learned from, but we continue. So, and if you take Ireland today, like in a way, it's a bit of a blank canvas. That, as you said, like there wasn't a lot of migration until 25, 30 years ago. There were groups of people who came here, Vietnamese refugees, Bosnian refugees. So there were very particular groups, Chilean refugees, who were all brought here, who were treated terribly a lot of the time, actually.
So we have history of treating people.
Yeah, we do. Actually, we institutionalise it, and we're still. And it's really important, like what we accept in the present. When we go, so we've just come out of, Ireland has a disastrous institutionalisation, really driven by the Catholic Church in terms of mental health, psychiatric issues. You can go all over the country and all of the buildings are still visible, right? Go out to Portrans, St. Edith's. It's a record, a living record of the institutionalisation in Ireland of people who were different, right? They were white Irish people, but they were different. So what we do with them, we'll give you charge of them and you can do what you like with them, and we won't even bother to see what you did with them. And we'll discover years later that you abused them, you sexually abused them, you did all sorts of things to them. And then, so that history is a little bit in the past, right? So now we're creating a present history.
That's right.
So you take about direct provision and you kind of go, so all of the places Lucky talks about, this whole system, and you kind of go like an archipelago, that what Foucault talks about, where you go, why are we doing this? And one of the reasons we're doing it is, so part of our trace back is, this state has had an absolute disastrous financial economic policy for a number of years that has led us to the present, right? So if we go back to the conversation we were having a few minutes ago about in 2008, the crash, we had a massive surplus of houses.
Yeah.
We had such 350,000 unoccupied housing units in Ireland in 2008-9 after the crash, right? And what happened was they were put into this big thing called NAMA, who then sold them off to vulture funds. They didn't say, actually the clever thing to do would be, let's keep the stock. Then that stock will be available for people who need it at a relatively reasonable cost.
That's
And
right.
that has driven the other part of the crisis today, where let's just accept the problem of a competition for scarce resources argument for a moment, where people are saying, my children can't get a house. And
Yeah.
actually, that's a fair argument, because the state has absolutely failed them, right?
Yeah.
And the reason it failed them, and it still continues to fail them, is because it bought into a commodified capitalist housing paradigm, and it will not deviate from it even now. Like, there's a new paper out yesterday or today which is saying 15 years before the housing crisis will be sorted, right?
Yeah.
That's from the Department of Finance. That's not from me or somebody in an independent left position saying that. So, anyway, so all of those, so we get down like that kind of, like, we have a dreadful history in Ireland.
In
of
Ireland.
treating Irish people,
Yeah.
like, who are different psychologically or whatever. So, in some ways, it's not a huge leap, right? I think the answer to the question you asked actually is white male power, right? Is the answer to the problem people have with difference, right? Is you are going, as Lucky said, you're going to take something from me. And when somebody keeps telling you
That's right.
on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter, oh, they're coming to take your house, they're coming to
Yeah.
take your this, they're coming to take your that. And then let's meet at City West. And any spark now, which is like the incident at City West, any spark, the phones light up, let's get them out. That's what we're going to do next. But look, I think I'm going to stop now. Like, we have lots of energy and lots of resources to counter that sort of stuff. As I said earlier, hate is great fuel, it seems to me. Whereas people who just want to get on and say, let's just work together,
Yeah.
they feel like, Jesus, what do we do to counter that? You know, because anyway.
Yeah. Again, you know, so you you bring up, yes.
I just
you
want
know,
to add something to
yes.
that. So back in the past, like when we were young, it'd be very difficult. You'd be going knocking doors at your friend's house. Are you coming out to play? Are you coming out to play? Are you coming out? But now, because of technology, you have WhatsApp groups, you've got Instagram groups. You just send one text, you get 10, 15 friends to come out. Then the group dynamics takes over, right? So if the group is aggressive, everybody will be aggressive. You know?
Yeah. Look, we've had, you know, it's been a powerful conversation so far, but maybe I might, you know, just open it up to the audience. You know, I know we try to keep a small audience, but if you have a question or a comment, we have some people online as well. I don't know if you know, we can take online for now, but if you have a question or a comment, comment? Yes, we have one here. Please introduce yourself.
My background is education, and I'm very concerned because, you know, children go to school and they learn side by side. Teachers are teaching in schools, you know, besides City West, besides other spots where incidents have kicked off. And yet schools are getting no training, no support, no nothing. So some of them are actively seeking training, anti-racist training, and how to address this in the school cohort. And others are just holding their breath, keeping their heads under the bar and hoping that nothing will kick off in their schoolyard or outside their school gate after school time. And I think that is a big failure of government. is not to actually issue schools, not just schools, but youth groups, community groups, because I don't think that the issue of racism can be addressed on social media. I think that battle is lost. But I do think it needs to be addressed at community level. But we can't just hope that because children sit side by side in desks, that they get on outside of that in the current context. So I think maybe the panel would really talk about that. What do you think the government could usefully do in terms of resourcing what actually is where the openings are, kind of in hard work, where children and families are gathering together?
Anybody wants to?
I could take that. So definitely, I'm a teacher. I lecture in the university, so I can say to you, really, there's that issue when you're in the classroom where because right now in the classroom you have a diverse set of students. You have migrants, you have a good number of the students there in most schools are migrants. But the staffs don't have the training. One of the experience I had a couple of years ago teaching, I went into the staff room in the university where I work, and the janitor met me opening the door to the staff room, and he said, "You can't go in there." And I was like, "Why?" He said, "You just can't go in there." And he didn't know why. He just knew I didn't belong there, because it's a staff room, and staff are usually not the scholar. So he said to me, I couldn't go in there. And I said, "Why?" He couldn't give me an answer. And the only reason why he couldn't give me an answer is because he's not trained. He's got that job, but no one has actually said to him that, yes, we could have teachers that are actually different. And all the teachers he had met over the years have been people that he's used to seeing. So that's a good example. Also, as part of what I did last year, still on the same issue, I moved a motion with the Teachers Union Ireland for racism to be part of the course in the school. So making it compulsory, just the same way you would make it compulsory for you to teach, to do a course in data protection. I'm sure for everybody in your workplace, you are required to do data protection, even if you don't want to do it, and if you fail it, they keep sending it back to you. Why can't we do that with racism? The answer is simple. With data protection, if there is a breach, someone loses money. But with racism, if there's a breach, who is affected? It's just the individual. The system, they do not lose money, but the individual suffers, and usually the individuals go silent. We don't talk about it.
Actually, I think it's because also the state is not calculating that it's losing money. Because that hostel that was born, who is going to pay? Is it me? Well, I'm paying for it because my taxes are used to pay for it. We are all losing money. You know, the last time the Louis was burned, that was part of our taxes.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the Gada cars that were burned, the Gadas,
They
you know,
are
that
losing money, yeah.
hospital. We are losing money. You know, even as an employer, when your staff leave because of racism, you have to re-recruit for them. You're losing money. We're just not calculating it, but we are losing big money. You know?
And what I say, it's still just, they do not think they're losing money. That's why it hasn't become essential. With data protection, you know you're losing money.
You see it.
You can see it in the numbers, so you actually take action and enforce it. But because you think you're not losing, and the people are not coming out, the people affected, the migrants that are being affected, they just walk away or keep quiet and not say much about it, then you're not doing anything. So really, the state has to actually start seeing what they're losing when these things happen. And like you just said, the damages that occur as a result, but the damages are not, it's not as clear as it is with data protection. So I think that's the reason.
And again, I mean, like, I'm a big firm believer in education. I believe that we must appeal to education to help with anti-racism. If people are not too young to perform racism, they are not too young to be taught about racism. From primary school, secondary school, we cannot wait until somebody becomes a line manager. Then we give you 1 hour training. And I stop, hey, man, you know, we do 1 hour training, you know, like, You can't deal with 500 years of racism with 1 hour training of anti-racism training. You know, Lucky wanted to jump in
Coming
there.
back to the schools, one of the things that we do at Mass is which is very powerful, is for us to meet every week on Tuesdays on a call which is attended by almost over 300 people. And one of the things that we do is to analyze things that would have happened. And something that came from the events of Friday last week from the group was we used to go to schools to speak with the students about the issues that people that migrants and refugees, all about that, to young kids, which it's the teachers that drive that kind of interactions, and we need to do more in terms of going to visit these schools and teach these children and let them see what they see on TV or online is different to what as a human being that is standing, and you tell your story to these kids, which they get amazed when they look into their lives and they look into a person that is living in direct provision with no career. The kids that go from direct provision to these schools, sometimes they don't even have something to carry, you know, because the parent maybe is not working.
Yeah.
You know, so I think we need more at that level to get things right. If we don't do that at that level, we're going to lose it in the long run.
Want to take another question? Yes.
Yeah, just on that, thank you. Just what she was saying, on the issue of education, really, because I do recall some years back when we moved here to Ireland, and my son was in preschool then, and he was the only black person that was given. Okay, that's much better. Yes, so he was the only person who was of African descent there. And I remember one of the kids, he came and said, one of the kids asked him, why is his skin so dark? That did he roll in coal tar? Did he roll in tar? And, you know, the level of just ignorance, even from that age. So I think it's not so much as even just going into maybe senior schools or, you know, you start from preschool. And the issue is not going to tell them, no, this is racism. No, it's just in the curriculum. Make it, show the differences. You know, that's where the acceptance comes from, because I really do like what Dr. Ebun says. You know, it's not so much about belonging, it's about acceptance. If you want to have a symphony, what makes a symphony is the different instruments. You know, you don't have to sound alike, they don't have to look alike, but they are all harnessed to bring out this beautiful sound. For children to understand that difference doesn't mean bad, that it's okay to be different, and they can learn something different from somebody who is different. Because if everybody taught the same way, it would be a very boring world. You know, that's where the spice is. So I think the curriculum and just introducing that from preschool, just changing the curriculum slightly, you know, not the curriculum that shows, you know, in fact, in secondary school, when my daughter was in university now, when she was in secondary school, and she gets really, you know, upset when she's like, they're talking about Africa. They make Africans seem like the custodian of poor people. There are poor people everywhere, you know, but they make it as if Africa is custodian, and then everybody's looking at her that, okay, so can you imagine somebody in secondary asking her that, do you live in houses, do you drive cars? And she looked at her, and my daughter can be quite, and she looked at her and so like, I couldn't understand her ignorance, you know. And that's just the thing, is people don't know. And so any little thing they see on social media, to take it up. And those in power know that people are gullible, they don't read. So they just hang on every word they say. So they can say anything. And the fears, the subconscious fears they've had of the others, you know, the other people, the other ethnic groups, they just throw up those rhetorics. And people hold on to that. It's like, okay, yeah, that's true. They're coming in. They're very different. They're going to come and soil our values. They're going to come and do this. So I think that education thing can be overemphasized, starting from preschool.
Preschool again, it's never too early, never too early. Any other question? And in people online, I know we have some on the Zoom call. Is there any question online? You wanted to add to that?
I'll just say to Anne, so say from a kind of community work perspective, one of the things we've been trying to do recently is to develop kind of good methodologies, right? So I've been working with a young artist guy, a few of us, and he had a big exhibition, and one of his things was a big painting of the current state of play in Ireland of the far right. It's an amazing kind of piece of work, and he was using the painting as a lever into the conversation. Now, we just happened to be in the gallery in Foley Street because he had an exhibition there, after Culture Night. But then he also, just a very simple thing, he used a Jenga. He made a bigger Jenga game, and in the Jenga game, all the questions were layered in the blocks, right? So one of the workshops, Ebun did about 6 workshops in Bluebell, and there's this older group of people, and we did 3 with them in Foley Street, using the Jenga game as a kind of method for how do we have the conversations, right? What methods are the teachers going to use? They're going to do a day's training tomorrow. I don't know what it's going to be like, but so I think whatever creative ways we can find into those conversations, and I think like we know ourselves from our practice for over many decades using the arts as a way to understand inequality, to change inequality. So it's the same, I think it's the same now. So in that particular, so like for instance, we're using the Jenga game around the housing crisis as well, right? Which has a whole other set of questions, which is if your rent goes up, da-da-da. So in that case, you draw the question, and it is there racism in Ireland? And it's not like I'm asking, and somebody says, well, John, you're always annoying me, and you're always asking me, and stop asking me, will you? Whereas in this case, it's not the game asks you the question, right? So if kids are using it or whatever, so you think about it, games are endless, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? That we like as a way of opening up the conversation, right? So I know there's a pessimism at the moment about training, right? So one of the questions is, what tactics and strategies can we use, right, in the struggle when the right is gaining traction with violence, right? Because it really appeals to young men, right? It's really appealing to young men who are, Bertrand Russell said that thing about young men going to war. Their brains are just not formed yet. They just think, oh, isn't this so great? And then 5 million of them are dead a couple of years later and go, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. So,
but the far right and, a lot of people are, just jumping on that and using that. Well, I think there might be a question from online, from those online.
Yeah, so this question is from Ebun. He says, do the panelists accept that it is only a small minority of Irish people who are not welcoming to refugees? I think most people accept them.
Yeah, I just want to say that, there might be a small minority, but they're very loud. And if you really want them, if you really want to address it, then you got to be louder. And since you are in majority, speak up. That's all I want to say.
Clap. That is a finger clicking moment, like speak out, and that's the problem. We're not speaking. Do you understand? And I think Martin from the last DEeP table, he was saying that that racism is not the problem of the people who are victims of it. They're not the ones who are struggling to fix it. It's everybody's problem. And we talked about COVID. I was the same thing with COVID. We all work together, to fix COVID, to do something about it, and all of that. So in 2004, we had a referendum, We said, oh, it's just a few people, when they were saying bogus asylum claim.
Yep.
Where did that? It ended up in a referendum.
That's right.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So when good people do nothing, what happens? Evil. can ride over us. No, so don't, we keep saying it's small. Yeah, we keep saying it's small. I won't say, what happened to me, but I got some threats, and I went to the guard, and they're like, oh, it's just a few people. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, so we see all of those things, and we keep, look, just, well, just about coming to the, any other one question, no? Just about coming to the end, you have another question?
Yeah.
One, okay, ish.
So this question is from YouTube. The person says, can the panelists address, please, what is the non-racist way for the indigenous people of Ireland to oppose their colonization?
To oppose their colonization. So the indigenous people of Ireland feel they are being colonized?
Yeah, that's pretty much what the person is.
Audience, my panelists, we are being colonized because I'm Irish as well. Okay, I'm not indigenous, right? Okay.
I don't know. Maybe
So
Kevin.
one of the conventional answers is, we'll take a detour through Kenya, right? And Ngugi wa Thiong'o's work of decolonizing language and decolonizing the mind. And his answer was that in Kenya, people should write in the Kenyan language, right? That was his answer to that question. And in a way, it's a brilliant answer, right? But he continued to also write in English and in Kiswahili, am I right? So if we take that as an answer to that question, we would all of us would relearn the Irish language. Are we going to do that in the short term? Probably not, right? But there's been an anti-colonial struggle in Ireland for a long time, right? Over many centuries, really. And I would say a lot of that was, like, if you go back to Connolly, James Connolly. Connolly was a socialist. He was executed in Kilmainham Jail in 1916 by the British, along with the rest of the leaders, apart from De Valera, and was really strong on a universal view of all of us together, right? In a way, his vision wasn't a successful vision. What we got was a very Catholic, conservative vision after 1922 and so on in this state, right? And it has led us to the present, right? We were insular. What's a nation? What is a nation? What is a nation state? What's it supposed to be, right? What should Ireland be today? In theory, we're post-colonial, right? But we economically were completely wrapped in the capitalist system in so many ways, right? So we have some good examples of non-racist, anti-colonial, revolutionary practice in Ireland from people like James Connolly. Prior to that, we had a whole what was called cultural nationalism, the Gaelic League movement. If you go back to 1798, right, Tone. So there's a real, we've a tremendously long, fantastic history of anti-colonialism. The problem has been the 20th century, effectively we had a single party state, very conservative, and that kind of white nationalist ideology has continued. The legacy of that feeds right into the present. But anyway.
I can let go, but see, if I ask, we can clap, that was a journey down history lane. Yeah, John, I'm just.
But I think people for me, people like Ngugi wa Thiong'o, there's a brilliant online documentary called Africa Turns the Page that I have learned so much from Wally Soyinka, right? Look at the common history of colonization here. What did the British do in Africa? What did they do in Ireland? The same methodologies. What did the Dutch do in South Africa?
Yeah.
What did the Spanish do in South America? All of Portuguese, right? So I think that the history education part is hugely important. So we can get young people to think,
young people, you've been given an assignment by Dr. John. So as we come to the end of this, if you could redesign, right? If you could redesign one system, education, policing, the asylum system, housing, to foster real belonging, which would it be and what would you change first?
Can I take this question?
Yes, go.
If I could change just one system to create genuine belonging, it would be the political system.
Okay.
So extend general election voting rights to long-term residents, such as those with stamp 4. I say this because these are long-term contributors that deserve a say in how the country should be governed. The current rules create a sense of exclusion, but if one has the right to buy a home, then they must also have the right to vote for the local TD,
Yeah,
right? So inclusion and democracy strengthens belonging and civic trust. So this reform would align rights with responsibilities and reflect Ireland's modern diversity. I am a naturalized Irish citizen. I came to Ireland when I was 12 years old. Unlike the indigenous, I took an oath of fidelity to protect the democratic values of the Irish Republic, right? Unlike
I mean,
those,
we
Yeah.
shout when Ireland is winning
Yes.
the match, you know.
Yes.
like-
So, protecting the democratic values of the Irish Republic is something that I am guaranteed to do, right? And this is what I'm saying is that people who are coming here, they deserve that opportunity to take part early on. Don't make them wait until they become Irish citizens. If they can buy a home, they should be able to choose a TD.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Opele, what would you change?
If I would change anything, I would say the educational system, and that's changing it from grassroots, from when they're really young to up to old age. So it's basically changing the educational system where people will be able to know the differences, for them to understand who these migrants are and be able to interact with them. So education will be my...
John?
I would probably break the asylum economic channel, the gap between them, and say, what's the problem? Let's just move the channels over and give people status straight away.
That would make Lucky happy. Lucky?
Yeah, then I'll stand with John there and make sure that the immigration policies are not racist, and make sure that the immigration policies accept people and not pigeonhole them and categorize them and marginalize them and treat them the way that Irish people want to be treated.
You know, that's a really good point. And again, I think sometimes a lot of people would do that. You know, when we start talking about immigration, you know, we always just go to the asylum system. You know, I'm like, you don't know that there are people who are in Ireland who didn't go to that asylum system at all.
Yeah.
You know, there are people who've come here to work. There are people who've come here from marriage. There are people who've come here as economic migrants. We make them sound like bad things, but I'm like, you do know a lot of Irish people are economic migrants or were economic migrants around the whole world. They even came to Africa. You know, I love what's his name now in the UK. He said, you know, we're here because you were there. We came because we came here because you
were there. Yeah.
You know, you told us, you know, about
Stuart
apples
Hall?
and coffee and tea. And we've come to see the coffee.
And Jesus.
I'm the leaf in the bottom of your teacup. That's what Stuart Hall said.
So we've come to see it. So don't chase us away, you know. You know what I mean? So just last round of questions, you know. If Ireland truly wants to be a welcoming society, what is one truth we must confront right now? One truth. Lucky?
Well, one truth.
We must confront right now.
Yeah, it's the inequality. It's the inequality to me.
Inequality. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go with that as well. And I'll say again, let's break the process open and, you know, let just give people their applications.
Abele?
I would say, apart from inequality, which obviously centers around everything, I would say having some kind of regulatory enforcement systems that could regulate the issues of racism, and also come up with a process where people understand that what they're doing is affecting something. Just as we said earlier, the government also being able to look at it to see that the racism affects the finances of the state. The companies realizing that the racism affects the income. When you get people to leave a job because of racism, you think they've just gone and they've moved up, but it is affecting. It's affecting the way people see you. So it's coming up with some kind of enforcement or regulatory system structure that would make that work better.
Thank you, Ishan. One
I
fact.
think diversity should be respected and treated as strength rather than be afraid of. That's what I'm saying.
Look, thank you all so much. We've heard, this showed us something powerful, okay, that belonging is not a gift that is handed down to a few, but it's something that, it's a right that is held by all. It's a right that has to be held by all if we truly want to belong. It's not a gift. It should not be a gift, where people are begging and looking for it, We've heard about the fear, we've heard about the exclusion, we've heard about the violence, solidarity, but, we've also heard about, some of the solidarity and some of the good things, that are happening as well. So if Ireland wants to call itself inclusive, then it must confront the systems. We must confront those systems, the behaviors, the narratives, that say that some people are more than others. We must confront those systems because inequality, injustice, non-belonging comes from when we categorize people. We say some group of people are better than others, some are more welcome than others, some are more accepted. The minute you put this quality of better, when you look at human beings and you introduce the quality, when I teach, I do an exercise, and it's a practical one. Immediately you can just see the change. Why? I only introduce one word. I introduce the word better. The minute you introduce the word better among people, this is better than, these groups are better than, you have introduced inequality. Inequality becomes the result. Fighting, and that becomes the result. So belonging cannot be conditional. It cannot be selective. It cannot be earned, by performing Irishness. We want to belong, so we perform Irishness. It can't be earned by that. It must be shared equally, fully, and unapologetically. We must share it. That's how we must, be to have, a society that is truly belonging. So join me again next week. We have a very interesting topic coming up. He says, "I'm not a racist, but." We hear that all the time.
Yeah.
So what is that but? What are we permitting ourselves to say? Thank you again. I say a big thank you to my wonderful panelists. Sheshan, thank you so much. Odella, Dr. John Bissett, and Lucky. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.